Boy, things have changed since I was in here last. All of a sudden, it looks like Christmas in here, and that's appropriate. I'm sure that it's a change for most of you too, because this happened since last Sunday. And it's probably paralleling in many ways changes that are going on in your own homes as we begin the journey towards Christmas. The church is a great place to be in fellowship in and working in this season because it embraces so unapologetically this journey. This is the first Sunday in Advent, the 4 Sundays that we mark with the Advent wreath, traveling towards Christmas. And in lighting the wreath today, David's modeling for children how we mark this time and how we go about getting ready. There are certain traditions, like the Advent wreath, and also like the sacrament of the Lord's Supper that we celebrate starting with this Sunday. The sacrament of the Lord's Supper on this Sunday is at least 1,600 years old and maybe 1,940 years old. We're not as positive about the last portion of it. We're not just having communion because it's the last Sunday of the month today, but because it's the long practice of the Christian family to share this meal as we begin this journey heading towards Christmas together. You all know about special meals. You're just coming from one, right? One of my jobs in the Thanksgiving special meal is carving the turkey. I've had this job for about 30 years, since I was 30 years of age. It took me a while to get it, but I finally got the job, and nobody, I think, has ever thought I was particularly good as a carver. But maybe it's just more because of my role in the family system, and also because I like drama. So I always made a big deal out of it. You know, I would take the turkey when Emily had finished it from the oven and parade it through the house, almost like a boar's head, for those of you who have been, and bring it to the table and have the Norman Rock Willie and sing and carve it there in front of everybody. And this year, Emily had gotten a new knife, the sharpest knife, a carbon tip, tungsten steel, precision edged knife. This knife was so sharp, you could just bring it close to a piece of turkey and bam, it opens up like that. So I have this knife, make a flourish about carving it, and I get into it carving, and really about 3 minutes into it, boom, I sliced my finger. That's what everybody around the table said, you know? Because it's not something you can hide. Fingers bleed. And so when you do it, it's quite dramatic, you know? It's sort of blood going everywhere, people jumping up to get away from it, and grabbing the turkey to get it out of the way so it won't get contaminated. Right? My sister-in-law's a doctor. She grabbed my hand and started trying to decide if I needed stitches, and they took the carving of the turkey away from me. I was indisposed, but my son took it over and he did a great job. It was turkey fillets that looked like they had come out of good housekeeping. But I was aware of the fact that I probably am never getting it back. No, seriously. It's not coming back to me now. The tradition is passed. And that's good. Some traditions should change, and some traditions should always stay the same. They help us to remember again who we are and help to inform us as we move forward in the journey ahead. One of the traditions that's very ancient in the life of the Christian community is that on the 3rd year of the cycle of 3 years, on this Sunday, we read this gospel passage from Matthew. Now, it's a little counterintuitive, because in the Christmas season, you might think we're going to read from the first chapter of Matthew. But instead, they say, read this passage from the end of Matthew, where Jesus talks about change. Change is coming. Starting with verse 36 of chapter 24. But about that day and hour, said Jesus, no one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, only the Father. For as the days of Noah were, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day Noah entered the ark, and they knew nothing until the flood came and swept them all away. So too will be the coming of the Son of Man. Then two will be in the field, one will be taken and the other will be left. 2 women will be grinding meal together. One will be taken, and one will be left. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let the house be broken into. Therefore, you also must be ready. For the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So, we're awake and we're getting ready. And obviously, you all are doing a good job. Somebody's been at work getting ready and here for this very Sunday. We've started the journey towards Advent together. In my house this weekend, I went up into the attic and got out the plastic box, the manger scene. It used to be in a Dewar Scotch box, but over 60 years that's decomposed a bit. So last year we suggested that maybe I could find something more appropriate for the future. So now it's in a big Tupperware kind of a thing. But I got it out so that we could start unpacking this afternoon. What do you do to get ready? From the hearing of these verses from Matthew, almost from the very beginning of hearing them, what the church has done, the Christian community, is to worry about if history is coming to an end. If the world was going to end. We've spent a great deal of time worrying about the end of the world. And that's ironic, because Jesus, as Matthew remembers, has just specifically admonished people here not to worry about the time that they're not going to be able to determine. He says, neither humans nor angels, nor even Jesus himself says, knows when that moment is going to be. But we know this, that the future belongs to God. Whatever the future is going to be like, we know this about it. Jesus says that it belongs to God. But we haven't paid attention to what he said, because for 2,000 years since, we've always, in every century, spent considerable time either prognosticating or forecasting when we thought the end of the world was going to be. In the last century, especially so, whole publishing magazines were established around this work of trying to tell us when the calculation about the end of time is going to come. And it looks to me like whenever we focus on that kind of specific calculation, which is really human calculation, we inevitably slide into a kind of judgmentalism that is all about who's in God's compassion and who's out. And I think that's what Jesus is trying to get us to avoid. The text, though, tells us, without trying to guess when the specific time is, go ahead and get ready. Be prepared. God's arrival in your life is going to be like a sudden rain, like the flood that came for Noah's ark. It caught some people unprepared. You don't want to be like that. Keep awake, therefore. Be ready. For you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. Be ready, because your life belongs to God. Live as if you are preparing for God to receive your life. And often when we've read this text and worried about the end of the world, I'm thinking that maybe that's been a form of denial for us. By focusing on our worry about the end of the world, we've been able to avoid the other clear truth, which is that our own lives will come to an end. And likely, for most of us, that's going to come before the end of all history. I can't say. I don't know for sure. But I think it's likely that you will personally stand before the Son of Man, before the Son of Man stands at the end of history. It's coming. It's as surely as my finger bleeds when you cut it. Your lives are going to be turned over to God. Our lives belong to God. So be ready. Live as if you're preparing for God to receive your life. What if this Christmas, this one that we're just now entering into, was the last Christmas you were going to celebrate in this life? If you knew that, what would you do differently? Would you still unpack the manger scene? Spend time getting it out of the attic? I would. You bet I would. Not only that, I'd want somebody to take pictures of me doing it so my grandchildren could be shown them later. So that they would see, this is what Papa always did at Christmas. He got the manger scene out. Then remembered the story of the birth of Jesus. How would you spend your time? My father, who's 86 now, this year at Thanksgiving, mom's at the healthcare center, for the first time wasn't able to be at the family table. My dad was there, and in the moment where I wasn't present, he gave my son, his oldest grandson, his pocket watch, which is, he uses a wristwatch, but this pocket watch was his father's pocket watch. My grandfather was a World War I veteran. He was the driver for General Blackjack Pershing in France. That was a dairy farmer here in Florida. He had a pocket watch. And his name is inscribed on the back in the verse of Matthew that says, let the days of worries be sufficient for the day. And my dad has always had it since my grandfather died, and he gave it to my son without asking. I want to say to him, Dad, don't do that. Not because I didn't want Joe to have to watch, but because I know what it means is in my father's head. He wants to be sure that he's done that. He's not sure he'll have another opportunity to do that, and he wanted to be sure that he did it while he was of sound mind and could be faithful to that task. If you thought that this Christmas was going to be your last, what would you do? How would you prepare? How would you live it? Is this sad? No. Christmas is full of joy. We're journeying towards the joyous celebration of Christmas. Life is a wonderful gift, but wake up. This road leads to God. Your life belongs to God. Be ready. Because as surely as my finger bleeds when you cut it, your life is going to God. How do you get ready? How do you live as if you're preparing for God to receive your life? Well, Romans put it this way, to paraphrase it. The only thing that you owe anyone else is love. Love one another. Love fulfills the law. When you act in love towards one another, you are covering all of the rest of the commandments. Now is the moment to wake up and to live in love. Put on the Lord Jesus Christ like you're putting on a suit. Put on his person, his character, his practices as you walk into the day. The Old Testament scripture for this day is from Isaiah. It's the one where Isaiah says, they shall beat the swords and the plowshares. Isaiah is saying, this is how you get ready. You take instruments that you've used for meanness or violence or fighting with one another, any of the energy or material goods that you've taken and placed in that, and turn them now into plows, things that are used for productivity. Turn that energy into something that's going to be good for the community, like tilling the earth, planting crops, so that everyone can be fed. Where do you go to get ready? The attic? To get the manger scene out? That's a good place to go. Amazon? Not talking about the river in South America. A lot of you would be going to Amazon. How about the offering, the worship that you just received? I think every offering in worship is an opportunity to lift up our material goods. Certainly, we practice that in worship because practicing generosity is one of the things that Romans calls us for here. If you have money, then seek to be generous with it. If you don't have money, then find something else, especially between now and Christmas, to be generous with. Be generous with your time. If you don't have any time, then find something else. Be generous with your words of kindness. But practice generosity. And let every offering be a moment where you recommit yourself to that, like David holding up the communion cup before God. Hold up your life in that moment and say, here it is, God, my life. Take it and use it for what you will, and everything that's in it. Because you're not taking any of it with you. Practice getting ready. places to get ready, to practice getting ready. How about this table? The whole point of eating this meal together on this Sunday is to help you practice and prepare for your life greeting God. This meal is a vision of hope. Bernard of Clairvaux, 1,000 years ago, a great Christian, said, we really look for Christ coming in three different ways. One is in the manger at Bethlehem, which is why we remember this Christmas story when God came to us in flesh as a human being. Another is at the end of time and history, in our belief and the hope that comes with it, that all of time in the future belongs to God. But the third is in your own life, every day. In some way we believe and wait for God's meeting you in some way every day in your own life. And we come to this meal as a way of practicing being aware of that. Here we practice serving one another. Here we practice feeding, nurturing one another. Here we don't come alone, but always together in relationship. Here we come with people who are here in the room with us and those who aren't. Whether we love them and they're at a distance, or whether we're estranged from them, we're practicing being reconciled and coming together here. Here we come in prayer, practicing speaking to God as we journey towards meeting God. So we live with hope, hope that is founded on what God is doing in Jesus Christ. Hope that the community that God is creating looks like Jesus. Jesus is the window by which we can look into what that community is going to be like. The next time that you'll serve this meal in this room is going to be Christmas Eve. And that's not a coincidence either. You'll come back to revisit and remember again what you began practicing here today. Live as if you are preparing for God to receive your life. Because, be ready. Your life does belong to God.